Welcome back to Sunday Live. Of course, there's a sigh of relief in the country. CORD says they've called off protests tomorrow, awaiting for a positive response from the Jubilee coalition. Jubilee, of course, you have the president and the deputy also saying they're ready to talk. A conciliatory note. Tonight in studio, the people, of course, who have been tasked with this and played a big role in the mediation process. Dr. Nelson Makanda, Deputy Secretary General, NCCK. Yeah. And George Morara, of course, the Vice Chair of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Thank you, gentlemen, for making time for Sunday Live.
Thank you.
So, CORD have called off the protests. Oh, we have tweets I hear that we can look at first of all. Isaac Moses say, through dialogue, much will be achieved. I'm proud to be Kenyan. So already you can see the mood in the country. Nehemiah rotates, Jubilee and CORD should close in the deal. Dialogue is all we have wanted. Time is up. And Phil, Mike Mwangi, not every crisis can be solved through street demos. Solving this IEBC stalemate requires honest and sober brains. Well, keep talking to us on 22422 and Twitter using the hashtag Sunday Live. So I'll start with Dr. Nelson Makanda. Where are we now then?
Really, we are at that point when we are waiting for the white smoke. And I think what has happened today, the calling off for the suspension of demos tomorrow is a good sign. It's a positive indicator from CORD. I do think that they have given a right hand of fellowship. I do hope that the other side would also be willing to be reconciliatory, to be able to allow the agreement in terms of putting up the Joint Select Committee of National Assembly and Senate to begin to work on the issues that are there. Really, they seemed to be agreed that the IEBC issue needs to be sorted out. The commissioners need to be released. Perhaps they seem to be agreed that they will use parliamentarians to deal with that matter. In other words, senators and parliamentarians. So in the mediation process already, you're saying there's an agreement from both sides that IEBC commissioners should
I think
so. I think it's more of how and the process. So it's we hope that this will be sorted out in a short while from now.
For me, the significance of what happened today, Hussein, is that as a country, the drums of war that have been really sounding for almost now, since May, since the demonstration started, those drums of war must fall silent. If the drums of war don't fall silent, then I think we'll be going down back to a very dangerous place where we were. We are heading back to the brink. We saw what happened in Nakuru. Jubilee supporters confronting the CORD, one of the CORD principals, Raila. We've had the very inflammatory statements that have been made today by the MP, Bahati MP, Ngunjiri. And I think it's time these drums of war actually ceased. And therefore, this is a sign that has to be commended from both sides. And as Dr. Makanda is saying, let's hope that they'll follow through in honest, open conversations that don't have the grandstanding that we've seen
so far. And we gather that we're almost reaching a deal tomorrow, latest Tuesday. Is that true?
Really, it depends with the
from the mediation that is going on that you are part of.
The church has done their best and joined by
the diplomats.
We have done our best. We can only hope that the two sides will agree. And really, it's about ceding ground and give and take. And we hope that in the spirit of give and take, that our leaders appreciate the enormous task that is before them. And they appreciate that this is a country they are dealing with. It's people. It is Kenya. And we have no other place to go. And so we hope that they will agree. They will agree.
But what kind of deal are you hoping to achieve?
Really, it's a deal that says this is how we are going to sort out this matter. As it is, they have both agreed that the commissioners need to go. So it's more of how do we do it? Whereas CORD feels we need to be out of parliament, Jubilee feels we need to be in parliament because that's where laws are made. And so I think CORD has ceded a lot of ground, and Jubilee, on the other hand, have also ceded a lot of ground. So it's more of how do we craft a motion that accommodates this varied opinions.
And that is where the point of difference has been, whether this should be done in parliament or outside parliament. I don't know what you would say. What is the best way for both now I mean, what would be the best way for both Jubilee and CORD to, iron out this? Because each side really wants to have their own. What would be the best way to do it?
Hussein, I think for me, I understand and see the role for the political class in this, but I'm also very careful and worried about where we have been as a country, what our history tells us. I think in 2007, 2008, there was a broad consensus of a cross-section of Kenyans, but I think the process, when the process came down to PNU and ODM, we left a broad set of institutional reforms to the political class. My fear is this insistence on only listening to the voices of Parliament without actually providing some platform and framework for input from across the board may be taking us down a very dangerous path, and I hope the politicians are not thinking of taking us to the IPPG deal, because what the IPPG deal will do will create another transitory body which will be contested at the next election. What we need to have in place are men and women who will make the IEBC institution stable, grow and conduct free, fair and credible elections, and I really hope that all voices will be brought on onto the table, and there will be a discussion as opposed to actually reducing this to a CORD and Jubilee affair. Let's not forget that the trade unions have said their bit, the religious leaders have said their bit, the civil society have said their bit, the governors are saying that the Parliament will not be a platform for them. Elections are for all Kenyans, and we have to find a platform and way of discussing this in a more holistic way that doesn't reduce this to a CORD and Jubilee affair.
Now, without jeopardizing, of course, the talks that are currently going on, like you've just said, Dr. Makanda, biggest problem so far has been whether to do this in Parliament or outside Parliament. How are you going to achieve that in the mediation?
I do think that the problem has been trust, lack of trust from both sides. Whereas CORD says Jubilee in Parliament, they have a tyranny of numbers, and thank God that they have agreed to have a joint select committee of both houses, and that seems to equalize in terms of issues of numbers. But however, how do we get our principals involved, and principals from both sides are not parliamentarians, and so I do think that as members of Parliament propose this motion, they'll be able to build in things or regulations that allow the public, the non-parliamentarians, those of us who are not in Parliament, to be able to have a voice in terms of contributing towards the motion of change of the law of IEBC and other electoral laws. I do hope that what they agree on and present to Parliament to create this select committee will be a motion that has sufficient regulations to safeguard the interests of CORD, but not going outside what we have given ourselves as the law, because laws are made in Parliament. Even when they sat in Serena or they sat wherever they sat, they still had to go to Parliament to make laws. So we do not have any other way of making laws in this country, unless if we are in war. And since we are not, we will go to Parliament to make that law.
For both of you, you talked about the principles. How difficult has it been? How easy is it to get the principals to talk, the leadership of CORD and Jubilee?
I do think that...
have you tried? Have they refused? What was the response?
I think they have spoken. It's only last week that they met at State House and spoke. So I would not say that they have rejected talking to each other. The President has just said today that he's willing to greet or talk to anyone. So I do think that in terms of talking, I don't think the principals are adverse on talking to each other. But however, the principals appreciate that this matter, it's not just about them. It's about Kenyans. It's a matter that needs to be sorted out by all Kenyans. And I think Parliament, if Parliament takes their role of representation seriously, then I do think that Parliament should be able to deal with that matter in a way that is amicable.
Okay, finally, for both of you, what do you think can be done by either side to help broker a deal, and by either side of the country at large, not to jeopardize the situation?
The recognition that we don't have a spare republic. This is the only country that we have. Let both sides come to the table from a point of honesty and let them avoid the grandstanding. Let's realize that we don't have a whole lot of time before the next elections. We don't want to push this down to the wire, and the earlier we sorted out all these issues, the better for the country, so that the IEBC, if there's a new IEBC in place, it has sufficient time to prepare and give us a free, fair and credible election come 2017.
Okay. I think Kenya is a young democracy, and we are nurturing this democracy, and the only way to nurture a democracy is to have credible elections. And so it's really to appeal to our principals, to our leaders, to appreciate the importance of elections, because that's the only way we begin to nurture a tradition of democracy. If we fail in elections, then people begin to think of options that are not right, that will not preserve the institutions that we have created and given to ourselves. I do think that Kenya is doing much better than many countries on this continent, and so we should not feel very desperate. I think we are in the right direction. I do hope that our leaders will also tone down during this season when we begin to talk and discuss, that they will not continue to excite the emotions of Kenyans and take them out there and be adversarial. I pray that they will be very reconciliatory and allow Kenyans to go through this process in a way that fosters democracy that we have given to each other.
Right. Dr. Nelson Makanda, Deputy Secretary General, NCCK, and George Morara, Vice Chair, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Thank you both for making time for Sunday Live tonight. Amin Ramadan Kasayam in Mumia says, kudos Honorable Raila Odinga and co-principals for taking this bold step. Jubilee leadership is now called upon to ask its supporters to tone down on the unwarranted rhetoric and give sober talks a chance. And somebody else says, thank you, President, for accepting dialogue to end the demonstration. So that is now leadership skills. Keep talking to us on 22422 or on Twitter using the hashtag Sunday Live. We'll be back after this short break.